I'm the oldest of four siblings. I'm 16. My younger siblings are 12, 10, and 9. Sounds normal enough, right? A busy family, four kids, parents always on the go. And in that picture, I've always been assigned one role: the responsible big brother. Sounds nice? Until you realize responsible basically means doing all the stuff no one else wants to do. I started doing chores when I was 5. Back then, it was simple stuff: putting my toys away, carrying my plate to the sink. I didn't complain. I actually felt proud, like I was finally growing up. But over time, that responsibility grew in ways no one ever warned me about. From clearing the table, I started wiping it down. From putting dishes away, I was washing all of them. From taking out the trash, I was suddenly in charge of cleaning the entire upstairs. No one asked if I was okay with it. No one discussed anything. There were no rotations, no chore charts, just one line: you're the oldest. You're supposed to do it. At first I thought, maybe my siblings will start doing chores too, like I did when I was their age. But they didn't. When my 12-year-old sister turned 5, my mom didn't ask her to take her plate to the sink. When my brother turned 7, my dad didn't tell him to wipe the table. When the youngest turned 9, he didn't even know where we kept the broom. Every single chore, from tiny things like taking out the trash to the nastiest jobs like scrubbing the toilet, fell to me. And I stayed silent for a long time. I told myself, I guess being older just means you do more. But over time, I stopped feeling like part of this family. I started feeling like a housekeeper with matching DNA. Because while I cleaned rooms, my siblings played video games. While I washed dishes, my parents were asking the younger ones, "What do you want for dinner, sweetheart?" And while I quietly worked, no one, not once, said, "Thank you." One day, I asked my mom, "Why don't my siblings have to do anything?" She answered with one sentence: "Because you're older." So, growing up means becoming the unpaid labor? I started to feel resentful, not because I was lazy, but because it wasn't fair. I looked around. My 12-year-old sister had a brand new phone. My 10-year-old brother got weekly allowance. The youngest? He got snacks from mom every afternoon. And me? Once in a while I'd get, "You're allowed to hang out with your friends because you help around the house." But that privilege? Turned out my siblings had it too, and none of them lifted a finger. I used to believe that if I spoke up respectfully, calmly, and kindly, adults would listen. I tried. The first time was 2 years ago. I was 14, still trying to be the good kid, but getting tired. Every day after school, I rushed home to wash dishes, sweep floors, scrub the toilet, clean the living room, take out the trash. My siblings? They lounged around, phones in hand, shouting from across the hall, "Hey, can you get me some water?" That night, I said to my mom, "Mom, I feel like the chores aren't really balanced. I'm doing everything, and my siblings don't really help." She put her phone down, sighed, and replied, "You're older. You should understand." I didn't give up. "I get that, but can we split things up a bit? Maybe they can do some of the lighter chores, like I used to when I was their age?" Mom went quiet for a moment. Then she looked at me, not angry, not yelling, but with this disappointed look, like I had let her down in some huge, invisible way. "Evan, why are you being selfish? You're doing these things to build character." I didn't understand. What kind of character do you build from scrubbing dishes? What life lesson is hidden in cleaning toilets? How does sweeping the living room daily, when the mess wasn't even mine, make me a role model? I didn't respond. Not because I agreed, but because I felt completely erased. A few months later, I brought it up to my dad. It was nighttime. He was watching soccer. I stood next to him and said quietly, "Dad, I think the chores at home are kinda unfair. I do everything. My siblings don't help at all." He didn't look away from the screen. He just said, "So what do you want? To sit around like them?" I clenched my fists. I just want things to be split more evenly. Even just a little. He finally paused the remote, looked at me. "That doesn't sound like something a big brother would say. You're supposed to sacrifice. You're supposed to be responsible. They're still young, but you're the example." An example? Then who's being an example for me? I started to feel like I was being treated like an adult. but without any of the rights adults have. No right to say no. No right to push back. No right to be tired. Just the constant expectation to understand. Understand why my siblings didn't have to do anything. Understand why I didn't get pocket money like they did. Understand why I didn't get birthday presents anymore. You're too old for gifts. Understand why I had to skip snacks so the younger kids could have more. You're a boy. You should know how to share. And over time I started to resent it. Not in a hateful, vengeful way, but like a crack forming in the middle of my chest, growing bigger each day. As I watched myself fade into the background of my own home. When I saw my sister get her hair washed and blow-dried by mom, then taken out shopping for new clothes, while I was told, "Your hair's too long, go get it cut yourself." When my little brother got taken to soccer games by dad, and I stayed behind, doing the dishes. I wasn't asking for more love. I was just asking for fairness. But apparently, in my house, asking for fairness was a form of disrespect. Mom once told me, "If you keep bringing this up, you sound more like a whiny grade schooler than a high school student." And I remember thinking, oh, so I'm only worthy of being the oldest if I shut up and stay silent. I started to change, not with yelling or slamming doors, but with a quiet coldness that crept into my voice, my footsteps, my sighs I no longer bothered to hide. I still did the chores, but not the same way. Gone were the fast, clean, efficient routines. Now, I moved like someone carrying a debt, a loan I never agreed to sign. Mom said, "Evan, mop the floor again. There's still water here." I muttered, "Maybe ask the others to try cleaning for once." She looked at me, about to say something, then sighed and walked away, like she always did. One of my siblings spilled snacks on the floor. No one said a word. I was already doing the dishes, turned around, saw crumbs all over under the table. I dropped the mop, walked into the bathroom, shut the door. A few minutes later, Mom called. "What's wrong? Why'd you leave in the middle of cleaning?" I answered through the door, my voice no longer polite. "I'm not this family's housekeeper." No one replied. No one followed me. But I knew. A boundary had just shifted. I started getting more short-tempered with my siblings. They had never heard me raise my voice. But now, the moment one spilled water or left toys on the floor, I snapped, "Pick it up. Do it yourself. It's not my job." One day, my youngest sister frowned and said, "You used to be nicer, you know." I looked at her, bitter. "That's because I used to think someone would be nice back." She went quiet. Ran to tattle to Mom. Mom didn't yell at me, just said that same tired line. "What kind of big brother talks like that to his little sister?" And I wanted to scream. What kind of big brother does all the chores like a maid? What kind of big brother isn't allowed to be tired? What kind of big brother is treated like a cleaning robot? But I didn't scream. I just smiled. A dry, hollow smile. Because I had already said it before, and no one listened. I started living like a stranger in my own home. After school, I'd go straight to my room, close the door, put on my headphones. No waiting to be called for dinner. No waiting to be asked for help. Every time I was called down just to clean, I did it. But the same thought ran through my head on repeat. Am I even their son? Or just the janitor who showed up at the right time? One day, while folding laundry, I saw Mom handing out snacks to the younger three. One small bag for each. Then she looked up at me. Didn't offer any. Just said, "You're older now. You probably don't need this kind of stuff anymore, right?" I didn't speak, didn't argue. I just looked at her. No surprise in my eyes. No hope either. Just acceptance. The kind that chills your spine. I used to think I was a good big brother, but now, I didn't want to be a brother anymore. Not because I hated my siblings, but because I refused to be the good one, by my parents' definition. The one who isn't allowed to get angry, who isn't allowed to want, who isn't allowed to speak up. And that's when I understood. Silence doesn't make people love you. It just teaches them you'll keep enduring anything. And I had been silent for far too long. The BBQ happened on a sunny weekend afternoon. The whole extended family was there. Grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and of course, my parents and my 3 younger siblings. Laughter echoed through the backyard. Meat sizzled on the grill, and smoke drifted lightly in the breeze. It looked joyful on the outside, but inside me, it was still cold. That morning, I was the first one woken up to help Dad set up tents, move chairs, and prep the drinks. My siblings? Still asleep until almost noon. Then they came out all dressed up, running around the yard, giggling. "Mom, does this dress look pretty?" Mom smiled. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Meanwhile, I stood in the kitchen, pulling ice from the freezer, my hands smelling like dish soap, sweat rolling down my back. I told myself to just push through. Today's a family gathering. Now's not the time to cause a scene. But that "just push through" voice, it was too familiar. And this time, it wasn't strong enough. During the meal, everyone gathered around the long outdoor table. People chatted about work, their kids, their recent vacations. Then, one of my aunts, someone I'm not even that close to, joked to my mom. "Wow, Evan's grown so tall. I bet he helps out a ton, being the oldest and all." My mom laughed. "Oh, he's a lifesaver. Give him a chore and it's done. The little ones are so spoiled. They don't lift a finger." Everyone laughed like it was just an innocent joke. I smiled, but inside, my chest clenched tight. And then something snapped. It wasn't loud, just small, but enough to make me stop holding back. I put down my chopsticks, didn't look up, and said clearly and steadily, "Yeah, I do everything, because no one ever asked them to do anything." Silence. Mom turned toward me wide-eyed. "What are you talking about?" I looked her in the eyes. "We don't share chores. We don't take turns. I do it all, since I was 5. I scanned the table. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins. Everyone stopped eating. I cook, I clean, I wash dishes, I mop floors, I take out the trash, and they play. Mom and Dad have never asked them to do a thing." Mom's face turned red. Dad furrowed his brow. My sister looked down at her lap. The youngest still didn't get what was happening. My voice began to shake. "I've said it before, over and over, that it's unfair. But every time, I'm told I'm selfish, that I'm irresponsible, that I'm not a good big brother." I swallowed hard. My breathing got heavy. "If you want everyone here to know how good I am at housework, then I'll tell them. I'm tired. I don't want to carry it all anymore. I'm done being treated like the maid in a school uniform." No one said a word. I stood up. I didn't wait for permission. If speaking the truth means I get punished, fine. But at least now I've said it. I walked back into the house. My heart felt both lighter and twice as heavy. I got grounded for 5 days. No going out, no phone, no laptop. At every meal, I came down and sat at the table like usual. But no one looked at me. No one spoke to me. Like I had committed some unforgivable sin. I was torn. A part of me felt relief. I had finally spoken. I had shattered the fake image of the perfect older brother that had hidden the truth for so long. But another part of me felt guilt. I didn't want to embarrass my parents. I didn't want to shame them in front of the whole family. I just wanted to be seen. Wanted someone to stand up for me. Wanted to feel like a son, not a reliable housekeeper in a school uniform. On the 3rd night of my punishment, I heard my mom crying in her room, very softly, like she didn't want anyone to know. I didn't go in. I didn't say anything. And I wasn't sure if I should even feel sorry, because the truth I spoke was still the truth. A truth buried for 10 years. And if the price of saying it was 5 days of punishment, then I'd pay it. Every single time. I thought the punishment would be the worst part. 5 days grounded. No going out, no phone, no friends. A long list of "you're not allowed" that my parents read to me that night. Their voices stretched tight like a pulled wire. But I was wrong. The thing that hurt the most wasn't losing connection to the outside world. It was the sudden chill inside the place I used to call home. From that day on, dinner became a silent movie. No one asked, "How's your food?" No one told me stories about school, the market, or little things from their day. Mom looked right past me, like I was just an empty chair. Dad only gave me a nod when I greeted him. Nothing more, nothing less. My 12-year-old sister tried talking to me once or twice, but the look Mom gave her was enough to shut her down. She dropped her gaze and kept eating like she'd never opened her mouth. The air was thick, like winter fog creeping through your sleeves, slipping down your spine, settling into your bones. I started to feel cold, from the inside out. The next morning, I came down to get a glass of water. Mom was prepping fruit plates for the three younger ones. Perfectly arranged slices of banana, sweet strawberries, a dollop of yogurt on top. I stood there for a second, then turned away. Not because I didn't want any, not because I wasn't hungry, but because I knew. I didn't count anymore in those little portions of love. I started waking up earlier than everyone, not to do chores, but to avoid hearing someone sigh when I walked into the room. I washed dishes quietly, even when they weren't mine. I wiped the table when it was dirty, but no one said thank you. I didn't do it to win anyone over. I just didn't want to fall too deep into that emotional hole without remembering who I was. 3 days in, while organizing my books, I overheard Mom whispering to Dad in the hallway. I didn't think he'd react like that. He's never been that way before. Dad's voice replied, soft and low. Maybe because we've never let him finish a sentence. I stood there, frozen behind my door. I didn't know whether to feel relief or like something cracked even deeper, because only when I exploded did they realize I'd been trying to speak for years, and no one ever listened. Still, I didn't regret anything. I remembered that moment during the party, when I finally said it all. Even though my voice shook, my hands were ice, and my heart beat like a war drum. I'd said the things I'd only ever dared whisper to myself. And in all that cold, the one thing that kept me warm was dignity. I wasn't the perfect son. I wasn't the model older brother they wanted. I wasn't the polite little boy who always said yes anymore. I was a tired brother, a hurt son, and a 16-year-old kid who finally said the truth the adults didn't want to admit. I still haven't been forgiven, but I forgave myself because I said it. And for the first time, I didn't need anyone's approval to know I was worthy of love. Not much changed after my 5-day punishment. I was still the first one clearing the table after meals. Still the one who remembered to take out the trash every Wednesday. Still the one everyone called when the washing machine beeped after a cycle. But one thing did change. And it wasn't my parents. It was me. I didn't do these chores out of duty anymore. I didn't do them because I was afraid of being called lazy, rude, or a bad big brother. I did them because I chose to. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the right to choose. I could say no if I was exhausted. I could refuse if the task wasn't mine. I could stand up and say, this feels unfair, without swallowing my words halfway through. I used to be the good kid, the one who always obeyed, always kept quiet. But I never knew how to love myself. That's different now. I thought back to that family barbecue, to the moment I finally said everything, in front of shocked relatives and 2 very angry parents. I used to be afraid of being disliked, afraid of being told I embarrassed the family, afraid of being labeled selfish, ungrateful, or immature. But after I said it all, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt lighter. Because what I said wasn't to blame anyone. It was to reclaim the part of me that had been buried under phrases like, you're the oldest, you should set an example, they're still just kids. I don't know what the future holds. I don't expect everything to magically change just because I spoke up once. But I know one thing for sure. I will never let myself be silenced again. And if someone out there is hearing my story, if you've ever been the eldest, the one who carried the whole house on your back while no one ever asked, are you tired? Let me say this. Speaking up doesn't make you a bad child. It just means you believe you deserve love too, just as much as anyone else in the family.